So one of the topics that's very important as far as my project is something that I'm trying to figure out right now is decisiveness. And I noticed that there's a place in my habits where I do not have decisiveness, and that's when I have to get out of bed sometimes. That, and then I compare it to, I began comparing my situation of getting out of bed with jumping into a black hole, to see what the difference is. So that's how I started thinking about it. I had a problem getting out of bed because, my choice was to either go to work or to stay home and work on some different stuff. And I was indecisive, so I just stayed in bed for a long time until time passed by and the choice was inevitably made for me. Jumping into a black hole that involves a little bit more risk, a little bit more unknown. The black hole represents the unknown and the risk of the gain or loss. And not jumping into the black hole involves just staying in the same place. So I started analyzing decisiveness. And from these two situations, I noticed that the common factor, the thing that I was comparing, was the decisiveness, the crossroads situation, where you have either one choice or another. And so I was just imagining myself, what do I do when I come across a forked road? Which way do I go? Do I go left? Do I go right? Do I choose A? Do I choose B? And as I'm analyzing the situation, I began to understand why it is difficult sometimes to make a choice between which road to take. Because when you're at the fork, you're not deciding upon one or the other. You're not gaining anything, but you're also not losing your chance. You're not losing any possibilities. When you choose either A, if you choose road A, you lose the opportunity to have road B. And if you choose B, you lose the opportunity to choose road A. As long as you stay on the fork, you have both. And so it seems like you have more chances, but you actually have nothing. So there's kind of a perception of having something when you actually don't. And so I started wondering, what is that which you have at the fork that you lose once you make a decision? If you want a common idea of this phenomena, it's called the buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse is when a person is happy when they go to the store and they have a lot of choices, but once they have something, once they actually buy something, once they invest in an item, they feel regret because it doesn't matter what they buy, they regret it because now they've lost the money and they don't have the option of having other stuff. And so that's buyer's remorse. And it doesn't matter what they get. If they get A, B, C, or D, or item F or G, they will always feel like they have lost something. And they will always regret the decision that they have made. And life is a lot like this sometimes. It doesn't matter what choice you make in life. You will always end up losing one, and you will always end up regretting the decision you've made. And so I'm analyzing that situation, and to analyze it, I started comparing it to see where it would fit into my project, into the list of my project, to the list of 10 elements. And one thing that came to mind was natural attainment, because in natural attainment you assume that everything is already attained, So when you're at the fork, it's kind of like when you're at the fork. When you're at the fork, you have the opportunity to have A and you have the opportunity to have B, and so it's assumed that, and so it's kind of like natural attainment, because natural attainment, you have everything. And so I'm comparing being at the fork. Does that mean the natural attainment says that you should stay at the fork, because at the fork you have everything, you kind of have everything, you have an option for everything, and that's that's also the idea that you get from natural attainment, that you have everything. And so for a little bit, I wondered whether staying at the fork would be the best option, even though you actually, in manifestation, in present manifestation, you have nothing. But because you have option for everything, you have more. And so if that was true, if that comparison was true, then natural attainment would be a real problem to have on my list. So I started wondering what I should do about that. But I only wondered this for a little bit, and then I solved it, and I'll let you guys know how I solved it in a little bit. I just need to get my thoughts straight around this. And the comparison, I lingered on that thought for a little bit just to kind of enjoy it, even though I knew that natural attainment within my project was not the same thing as being at the fork of indecision. So I just lingered in there just to kind of enjoy it, just to kind of see just kind of explore that place of confusion and misery. And I do this sometimes. Even if I think that something is false, I just linger in the idea, just to kind of absorb and just to make sure that I'm not missing it, that I don't miss exploring any corners in that state of confusion, in the state of falsity. Because in every idea that you consider, you have to make sure you explore it, because sometimes the idea, even if they're false, may have a grain of truth, may have something valuable, may have a valuable lesson that you can take with you. And so, being at the fork, natural attainment, I was comparing the two, even though I had a pretty good idea that they weren't the same thing. So I lingered there for a bit, and then I started analyzing again. And the reason why they're not the same is because natural attainment has to deal with a state of satisfaction, a state of complete satisfaction in which you realize that it doesn't matter what you do, right? When you're at the fork, that indecision that you have when you're at the fork, that has to deal with state of dissatisfaction. So it's a completely different level. There's natural attainment, you experience at the natural satisfaction, and then the fork on the road, you experience in the state of dissatisfaction. Indecision, natural attainment, your decision matters a lot depending on what you have and what you don't have. And your decision matters little because it doesn't matter what you choose, you will always have everything that you want. Satisfaction, dissatisfaction, indecision. You could say that you're more decisive in this state. So, realizing this, I broke it up into two levels. So even having natural attainment, you will still come across a situation in your life in which you are in a fork road and you have to make a decision, right? I mean, that's the real world we live in. So how do you apply natural attainment to this? And so I look at the situation of the forked road through the perspective of natural attainment, through the perspective of that my project is supposed to give you. And then I looked at it at the normal way to look at it, the way that our culture thinks about, there's gains, there's losses, and there's some things that make you better, there's some things that make the situation worse. So, natural attainment and without natural attainment, the forked road here and the forked road there, and how do you respond to each? So that's the next step in what I'm analyzing. Kind of in between, so there's the state of natural attainment and the state of dissatisfaction. Then there's something in between. In this situation, you either have A or B, or you have none if you stay at the fork. In natural attainment, you have everything. And somewhere in between, I consider the possibilities, right? And so I call the bottom one, I call a present manifestation, so a consummate manifestation, where the decision that you make, whether it's A or B or stay at the fork, you will get that fully, like it fully develops so that whatever you choose will be yours, right? There's a state in the middle in which you consider possibilities as a gain or a lose or a loss. So at the fork you have the most because you have the possibilities of both. If you're at B, you only have possibility for B and you lose possibility for B, for A. And if you're at A, you lose possibility for B and you have all of A. So there is natural attainment where you have everything, everything's possible. There's a level of you're considering possibilities, and whether you value possibilities, whether you value if you value opportunities more than you value actually having something. And then there's a state of dissatisfaction in which whatever you have, that's what you value. And so these are three different levels of that situation of being at the fork that I'm analyzing. And so, so I will keep analyzing that. There's three levels, and there's the culminant manifestation. That's where everything's played out and everything that is gained, everything that could be gained is gained, and everything that could be lost is lost. Where everything's played out. That's what you call culminant manifestation. So that's the lower level. Then there's the levels of possibilities, and then on top of that is natural attainment, where there's all possibilities, and everything that could be attained it's complete satisfaction, is completely attained.